Awesome. And now we'll go back here, and everyone on YouTube is going to find this so very fascinating. Around here somewhere. Seriously? There it is. All right. Welcome to Rock Denver. Thanks for coming. Hopefully there's more next month.
Hi guys, I'm Jenny Grubbs. I did a boot camp, so learned coding, but then the lovely tech layoff wave hit right as I was wrapping up my boot camp, and I was very unsuccessful with getting anywhere with employment in coding. So I found other options where I could. One of them has been data annotation and training AI systems. It can be done, this is something that can be done as a side hustle. If you put a lot into it, you can even scale it up to the point where it can replace full-time income. It's almost all done with gig work, 1099 type stuff, to where you're a contractor, you're a freelancer, you're not an employee in the vast majority of cases. Okay, so AI training is essentially labeling data to help an AI large language model understand what should come next, but not only what should come next, but what will sound good if it comes next. And that's a lot of the difference between just a flowchart style chatbot versus a thinking chatbot that not only gets a question that has a yes or no answer, but gets a question that can put together a turn-based conversation. And data annotation is what helps make that fluid and feel like you're talking with more than just a robot. Okay, so what data annotation involves is putting together prompts that you then have a generative system create responses and generate responses that you then rate both, like if you get two responses, which one's better, which one's not as good. But then some projects and companies will have you dig into that deeper for the why of it. Why is this one better than that? What piece of this makes this one better than that? And you're labeling the data, you're putting that information out there into the system such that it can learn, such that it can grow, and such that its next round of generation, what the responses that it comes up with will feel more alive, will feel more human. Okay, and this is something that can be such an easy side job. There are a lot of companies that are looking for people to help train their data, to help make their systems feel more human. And it can be quite simple to get on with these companies, that you put in your resume and your qualifications, what you're good at, and then you get matched to projects that are looking for those qualifications. So say that you have a lot of experience in math. You might get matched with a project that is looking to train a model, a large language model that is dealing with STEM systems for helping kids that need help with tutoring or help with things like that. Maybe you get matched with a project that is looking, or that is going to be helping college level math students with their, say their thesis or a project that they're working at. So there are a lot of different applications that can happen with it. The more specialized you are for this, the better projects that you can land on, the higher pay it is. Okay, so AI is becoming very prevalent in today's technology. And companies need their AI systems to feel updated, to not feel like they're from yesterday, to not feel like they're, something that has been sitting on the computer for a while and just doesn't feel like today. And data annotation can help make that happen. And that's why companies are willing to hire tons and tons of contractors to do tasks and be on projects to train these AI systems and the large language models. The LLMs can be very specialized, they can be very expansive, they can be very targeted. And projects can be huge, projects can be little. And you never really know which way that's going to go until you get into it. Let's see. Okay, so data annotation is also known as reinforcement learning from human feedback. And that's just all it is it's people putting their knowledge and insights into the data to get it such that the AI system can generate and spin up better answers that feel more human. And we, as AI trainers, reinforce that. We help with the learning such that it's learning that makes sense and learning that isn't going to go backwards. It's going to keep building on the next thing. And data annotation is labeling raw data with metadata. And a lot of that for the contractors at the companies that do this, all that is done on the background. It's not even what the taskers do. The taskers are working with systems that are set up and deciding whether one response is better than the other, writing out why, and then that then goes to others in the company, probably coders who are doing the actual metadata changes and updates and things like that. And the whole idea is to teach, the purpose is to teach AI to be able to interpret the data. AI recognizes patterns. It does not actually learn, it does not actually know things, but it sees the patterns. And if we reinforce what the patterns are and which patterns should be pursued, which patterns should be ignored, then we can make it smarter. But we also have to train the AI for recognizing things versus people versus how we interpret things and people. AI has no idea what a bouquet of roses might really mean. It's a bouquet of roses. But a bouquet of roses could mean Valentine's Day. It could mean love. It could mean an apology. It could mean so many different things, and that's where data annotation comes in, because the annotators can put that context into the data to allow for that interpretation in ways that the straight picture doesn't tell you. Okay, the training process, I briefly touched on this already. You're grading AI-generated responses, and then you're giving tips and corrections. The tips can be, I just used that flowers and Valentine's Day example. So you see flowers, it can mean many other things than just flowers. Corrections, you see flowers, it's not necessarily going to mean only this one thing. It could mean all three things. It could be both an apology and an I love you all at the same time. So it's just adding lots of context and meaning to what these responses and what everything could actually be, the interpretation. An important part of the training process is looking for hallucinations. AI thinks of things on its own without meaning to, and suddenly you wind up with an AI system generating a response that is an absolute piece of garbage because it's a hallucination. It's the AI thinking the pattern should go this way, and if it's roses, then maybe it's flowers for this person's mother, and this person's mother is sick, so maybe we need to do something related to the person being in the hospital, and maybe we need to then figure out what if the person encounters MRSA, and maybe we need to figure out how they would then be treated, and it could spin off in all these directions that has nothing to do with anything that we actually asked or prompted. And that's only one little example of it. It can go so much weirder than that. So the hallucinations, that's one area where data annotators can help figure out what triggers a hallucination and how to prevent it, and how to limit the prompt from going further than it needs to. And prompt engineering is its own field right now. It's definitely something that is growing, but data annotators can help with that by putting in stopping blocks for how far not to go and when to cut off the thinking process. Okay, opportunities. One of the cool things about this as a side hustle is it's so completely flexible. This is something that can be done at 2 a.m. if you just want to earn, a quick $50 or something for doing this little thing really fast. It's something that can be done on your day off for a few hours. It's something that can be done all the time for multiple different companies to the point where it does become full-time income. It's definitely gig economy. It's not employment contract, or it's not full-time employment. It's not being an employee of the company. It's being a freelancer, being a contractor. So you definitely would be subject to self-employment tax for the income, but it does have lots of flexible options and opportunities. Okay, this is a list of a whole lot of companies that currently are offering this type of work. Some of them are a little more reputable than others. I've worked for many of these, doing bits and pieces of work. Some I've had long contracts with, others I've had 1 or 2 day contracts. It's all flexible and changeable. And it's just, if this is something you do want to do and you do want a chance to make this little bit of extra money or a lot of money, you just kind of go to the company, look at sign up, see if they're doing just a general sign up or if they're doing targeted project signups, things like that. Okay, so things when you are training the LLMs, you always want to be looking for whether what they generated is true. And all of the companies I've worked for have encouraged Googling things as you go. Is the information factual? Are there any hallucinations? How complete is it? And then, is it conversational or is it just single turn? Are they, like a lot of these that will want you to do 5 generations in a row and ensure that one follows from the other so that it's true turn-based conversations. And then you're looking for the tone of it. Is it matching, like if the prompt was asking for a letter to a grandmother to see how she's doing, does it sound like you're talking to your grandma or does it sound like you're talking to your boss? So is the tone matching what was asked? Persona, some AI systems can take on the persona of, let's go with Hulk Hogan, a wrestler who's charging and, think of that persona. So did the prompt ask for Hulk Hogan? Did the AI give you Hulk Hogan? Does this match? The sophistication level, again, if your prompt is asking for help with talking to a kindergartner about why they have to learn how to write or color within the lines. Does it match that, or is it talking to an older person and it makes no sense for a kindergartner to read it or be told it? And then there are limitations to each data set that have to be considered as you're training the LLM. Each LLM will have a set cutoff for the data that was provided and fed into it to begin with. So you need to know what that cutoff is. Because if it's talking about things that happen after that cutoff, it's probably a hallucination, or it could just be wrong entirely. And then there can be specific areas of focus for projects. And if it's a project that deals with math, does the math add up? Does it make sense? So that's where taskers have to be able to either do the math or check the math or find ways of ensuring that it all fits and makes sense. If foreign languages are involved, you have to be able to ensure that they're accurate and not, Spanglish instead of regular Spanish or something of that nature. You got to check your web links to make sure that they're following and actually go somewhere and not to randomness that doesn't actually do anything. I mean, it's just all of these types of things. I won't go over each of these points, but it's just the whole idea of you have to check and check and check and check and make sure. And the data annotators are the ones who are checking these things first and putting that information into the system, which then gives it a little bit more ability to do it on its own going forward. And then grammar and language. That's another thing data annotators are looking for is the punctuation right? Is the grammar right? Did they use colloquialisms that just do not make sense? Are there idioms way out there compared to what they are? Slang, are they talking about something being on fleek? Does it really make sense in context? Have they started adding in 6-7 to everything like the kids are saying these days? It's just the data annotators go into this and figure out this is something that should be part of this is something that should not be part of that, and then they essentially adjust the system to get it up to date. And then data annotators also work with images and help with generation there. Some of that for the taskers is going to be circling areas and labeling what is within the area that was circled, identifying colors using standardized color scales, like you grab an eyedropper, hit that on the color, and label what that color is. I know it sounds simple, but these are the things that make the difference between a photo looking right and looking wrong. Well, and there we go. But this is, I mean, the large language models do not know colors. They do not know what they're looking at. They only know what the data says. And so the data annotators help make it such that blue is blue and these shoes are blue and they're shoes.
I built previous slides for data annotation images. So I built the app that data annotators would use to annotate images. It was interesting.
Well, and then it's also identifying what in a picture that was generated doesn't look right. So, okay, I'll pause. Welcome.
Come on in. Get to the back.
So the data annotators also identify what in pictures does not look right. That can be people with way too many fingers. That can be a door that goes out and then there's a cliff right outside the door. Or it can be shadows there's nothing that created the shadow. Just whatever you see that you look at it and you go, wait, what? You've probably seen the memes of pictures that just do not look right because AI generated them. Well, data annotation is what's helping to stop that and keep that from being quite as obvious and problematic. Okay, so if you do want to get started doing this type of thing as a side hustle or more, it's picking your platform, signing up, going through onboarding and training, and beginning to execute the tasks. It's pretty straightforward. So when you go to start a task, the most important thing, read the instructions carefully. Because from one task to another, it could be subtly different or it could be wildly different. And there's never really a certainty of what the task will be. So the instructions will always be important. And then usually it's writing prompts and generating responses, and then using a provided rubric to review and grade responses. And those reviews and grades can be writing out sentences, they can be A, B, C, D, they can be 1, 2, 3, 4, or any combination thereof. And it's going to vary from company to company, project to project. But it's, generally speaking, pretty easy. I mean, there are some some projects that are for audio ones where you have to speak the prompt, generate what is being generated, listen to what was generated, rate it, and then maybe you'll have more turns to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, a lot of companies will have many taskers doing the same project or the same task over and over again, because they're looking for varied input about what's important and what makes sense. And then they use the sum of all of that for what actually goes into the LLM for keeping it, for updating it and the full annotation. So one task may or may not be the most important thing, but gathering all of those on the one thing is what winds up making the system smarter. And then the ratings are used for the quality of the answers, as well as for the tasker to determine whether or not the tasker is good for a certain project or maybe better suited for a different project. And then the matching system takes that into account as well.
What is the best project you could imagine?
The best project?
What was your most favorite?
My favorite. I really liked one that was for creating a STEM training system for kids. It was for elementary and middle school age kids, and we had to help train the system for what types of questions would be encountered in science, math, English, social studies, all kinds of things there. And it was just getting the system to be able to think and talk like a kid and interact with kids. And so that was a lot of fun. No, it's okay. And then across all of these companies, I've encountered projects that have been very short and projects that have been medium length and long term. The one I just mentioned, that one was a long-term one. I worked on that project, doing tasks over the course of a year and a half. But then one project that I just completed, that one only lasted 3 days. So it's really just a matter of how large the LLM is, how much of a focus it needs, how advanced it already is before they bring it to us, and then just what we can do to make it better. Sometimes projects are put out there as a speculative thing to where they're trying to sell it to someone. So they don't actually have a customer or a client for it, but hey, if we have this really cool thing that we can sell to you, all the better. So those are always interesting because they don't always tell you ahead that it's a speculative one. They say, we've got this great project, we want to help train it. And, okay, sure. And then 3 days later, bye-bye. But it's frustrating, but it's also just kind of the nature of it. As a side hustle, you do what you do and what's available. If you're doing it full-time or trying to do it full-time, it can be frustrating, but you just have to write it and go on to the next project. Some of the platforms match more easily and readily than others, and you just have to gauge which ones are going to make sense for you to keep going with or move on to the next. The payment structure, most of these companies do this as a weekly pay through something like PayPal or Venmo, or take your pick of financial money transfer type of thing. It's all 1099 contractor work, so there's no W-2 or any tax money taken out. It's for when you're actually doing tasks. All of the companies I had listed on that earlier slide pay out for tasks. Training pay can be sketchy. Some of them pay for training to learn the projects, others don't. And it's really a matter of just keeping track of what you were promised and do what you can with that. But I haven't encountered anyone that doesn't pay for the actual work of the tasks. General tasking isn't very highly paid. It's 15 to 25 an hour. So it's not super, super high paid. But when you get into the specialized ones where you're dealing with upper level math, where you're dealing with science, where you're dealing with foreign languages or legal issues, medical issues, things like that, it can be 50 to 300 an hour. So it's really just a level, or just based on the specialization there for that. But if you're just doing the really basic, teaching the LLM about colors or teaching the LLM about words that go together, or the flowers example that I gave, that's going to be lower level pay. So that's side hustle money. That's not full-time money. Some challenges faced by AI trainers. The biggest one is the dreaded EQ, MTQ. That means that a project has ended, or the company is undergoing maintenance, or there's just not enough tasks to go around and they're throttling it. And you go to log into the system and you see it and you go, and it says EQ. And okay, I guess I don't have any work to do. The frustration is not getting paid for training time. And that's just a company by project thing that you just have to keep track of and make sense, or decide whether it makes sense to do the training for a task if you're not going to get paid for the training ahead of doing the task. And then you just also have to gauge whether you're okay with them, with a company keeping track of you through your hand being on a mouse and monitoring that, or keyloggers, or the webcam being turned on to see you and what you're doing. Because some companies require that. Others don't. So again, that's just picking your platform. Yes, sir.
Are those loggers, do you feel like they're accurate or fair?
There's one company that I was not happy with about that. I felt like they were really shorting me through their use of that, because, what's that? Well, when I'm doing it, okay, pretend this is a mouse. I don't always move the mouse constantly, like my hand might be still. And that company's that company's mouse movement detector didn't understand that and wasn't smart enough. And so I felt like that shorted me some of my time for that, but.
Okay, because I'm a keyboard guy. So, do they require you to move the mouse like every 10 seconds or every 60 seconds, or how does that work?
You know, it really varies from company to company, and some use that and some don't. It's very subjective, and I don't work for the company that I thought was shorting me because of it. I stopped working for them. Just for me, that was an untenable situation, so. Oh, of course, it's a good question. Okay, so I guess this is where I'm at conclusion. You'll be able to watch this, I believe, since you came in late. Jeff says yes. But, okay, so I've gotten quite a bit of benefit out of doing data annotation work. I have multiple sclerosis, and I am I'm partially disabled, on my way to mostly disabled. So being able to do some of this as side hustle or more has been very beneficial to me. And I know it's something that can really add a little money here and there, or turn into full-time if it needs to. And I think with as prevalent as AI is becoming, any chances we have to make it work better and work for us rather than be something we're frustrated with, I see that as a good thing. But, okay, and thank you all for, yes, sir.
How do you find your interactions with doing this? Has it impacted your ability to create software? I know you said you did a boot camp.
I did.
Was your boot camp in data, was it in software?
It was in software.
And have you found any crossover where it's helped you?
I haven't had a lot of opportunities to explore that. I think it helps me, I think going through the boot camp helps me understand how the data annotation could apply to it. I may not be the one affecting the software directly, but I'm impacting the overall LLM, which then affects the software and makes it all work together more clearly, more functionally. Does that make sense? Okay. Other questions?
Have you found that working with the annotation stuff helps you work with AI better? So you understand how it works and what the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I encounter AI systems in the wild, whether like I'm on a store's chatbot or something like that, I have a better understanding of whether or not it's been trained, whether or not it's had somebody working on it, or if it's just a straightforward flowchart style chatbot. Better understanding of how the AI may react or may not be able to react, and limitations.
It's fun to see if you find a broken AI, how broken it is, and how to keep breaking it further.
That certainly can be fun.
When you're doing the annotation, when you're doing your work, are you prompting?
Yeah.
So you know what to prompt for. Like, how do they ensure the quality of your prompts and that you're like guiding the bot, giving it the type of feedback that they
Okay.
want? Yeah.
That's a good question. That's really a project by project type of a thing. Some projects have you do open-ending prompting. Some projects have you doing very targeted prompting. It's really a read your instructions carefully type of a thing for that. I know one project that I was on, we had to literally prompt on anything under the sun. We had no limitations whatsoever on what we could prompt on. So I'm sitting here going, okay, what am I going to prompt on? Give me 50 words about toenail trimming. You know, something just a totally wacky out there, and see what it spins out. And then so it spins out two things, and then I have to pick which one is better than the other, and then I have to go in and label different areas of this that make it the better thing than this, and then I have to go in and label which thing makes this not the good thing, and then I have to then do a couple of lines about what would have made the good one better, and then that's what I send back. And then another project, it wants very specifically to only have yes/no questions about the moon. And so, okay, so is the moon made of cheese? And then it gives yes or no. And then it wants the why. And so then I have to go through and rate the response of the why and things like that. So it's really, really varied. So,
To further clarify John's question, didn't you mention something about quality rating? So I feel like it can ask go through the same prompt with several engineers,
mhm.
and so then it's able to rate you, and then you said it guides you to another project, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the different platforms each have their own way of doing this, but I'm sure they have AIs that are figuring this and algorithms that are figuring out to match a particular tasker to specific projects. Like I have backgrounds in, I did a decent amount of math and science and different things, so I frequently would get matched with higher level math and science projects, things like that. But then I also have 20 years as a journalist, so then I'd get English and writing projects, but then it just depends upon what all they're looking for, and then they would take all of those things in my resume and my background into consideration for how to match me and where to match me. And then also all of my ratings for all of the tasks that I've done and how they came up. Maybe I did a lot better on this writing one, so they're going to put me on this project, versus I didn't do quite as well on the calculus aspect, so they don't want me on this math project. But I did awesome on geometry, so they're going to put me on this project. So it's a whole lot of algorithm and logic based for the matching aspect.
So you mentioned, Jeff asked a question about, what was an example, what
Some of both. Some of both. And then there are so many platforms out there for this, and I've worked for, I think, 7 or 8 of them overall. Yeah, 8 of them overall now. And they do it differently. They do it very differently. And sometimes we know what's coming, sometimes we don't. And you sign up, you match for a project, you get into it, and you see what it's going to be. One of them was for singing. I used to have a great voice. I don't have a great voice anymore. So I had to kind of beg off of that one and say, nope, let's skip that one and go to the next thing.
Do you feel like working with some of the agencies that, or any or all of them, or none of them, that you feel like you're just a commodity
Yes.
cog in the machine? Or
Yes.
do you feel like you're valued, like, oh, this agency respects my knowledge?
Oh, definitely a cog. I mean, yeah, it's freelance work. It's contractor freelance work. There could be tens or hundreds or even thousands of us working on this one project, all doing the same thing. And 10 to 20 of us will do the same task. So my one contribution isn't make or break on this. But I also at times feel very valued because I do get put on some very specific projects to my knowledge. And if it's ones that have to do with journalism, hey, awesome, I have some great experience in this. If it's ones that have to do with this random science thing that I learned about over the course of my lifetime, great. That's awesome to know that that's valued and helps. So it's some of both.
It sounds, I can't remember the name of the Google program, it goes back like 5 years, right? Where you were, I can't remember the name of it, the appendix machine or something like that. It's just people who just get assigned a task. Right?
Yep.
It was like you were just a contractor doing menial tasks. And you got paid.
Well, there's like TaskRabbit.
One thing I'll note to the question of kind of QA slash how you know if you're doing good. I said that I helped build a computer project, and it was multiple people would have the same prompts. So like you would buy one video with 10,000 frames, and a person would get 100 frames, but they may have 20 frames as you, and then they're taking the aggregate of those answers, and then it gets to decide which is better. So trainers are often evaluating other trainers, and at the end of the day, your manager just goes with competency that's produced by the result. Based on 30 people answering this question, we're quite confident this is the result. I worked with this company through the pandemic, so to January 2022.
Yeah.
I worked there for 5-6 years. They have shifted what they're doing because they couldn't find adequate staff for what they were trying to do. They hired way too many data scientists and never actually set up traders. They were contracting through these contracting places to do data annotation, and that ended up costing really too much money because pay a contractor to pay a contractor, middlemen take money. But that's how I saw it. Is no one person was ever the final result. same child response was processed by multiple people, and then that answer was taken back.
Can you go back to the slide where it shows
The companies? Sure.
sorry, I was late.
No worries. Uh, 8 of them. And I'm under non-disclosure stuff to where I can't talk specifically about which ones. But
Is it easy to get into this, or is
it can be super easy.
it easy?
Yeah, it can be super easy. Like say, just picking one, Scale AI, their outlier, they're constantly advertising for people to do data annotation for them. What?
There is, sounds like there's a great demand.
Oh, yeah, huge. I mean, I think only a couple of these aren't actively looking for. And even then, they're still looking for, they just aren't advertising for it. But the majority of these, you can, data annotation, I see them advertising all the time. Aligner definitely advertises. Mercor is probably the most lucrative, but also hard to get onto because they're known as having lucrative contracts, but they want super specialized. They want the legal knowledge, they want the medical knowledge, they want the foreign languages. Outlier, data annotation, Appen, CrowdGen, Aligner, Hubstaff, a bunch of these are just gathering tons and tons and tons of contractors to do these micro projects. Some of them do larger projects, and it's just a matter of signing up with the platform, doing onboarding with them, and getting matched with projects once they have your qualifications, your resume, your interests, your abilities, and then digging in.
That sounds great. 25, that's pretty confident, that's huge.
Yeah, that's
I know you said if you have expertise.
it, then it goes up from there. And then, yeah, but for a generalist, for a generalist tasker, it's gonna be 15 to 25. And then,
But you do have to have some kind of skills, right? So what I'm thinking is like, the person who's trying to find a job, but then
yeah,
in the grocery store, can't get employed. Can that type of person do this, or are they?
absolutely. If you have, I mean, usually they're looking for at least a high school diploma. If you have a bachelor's degree, even better, because then that gives you qualifications that could factor into getting matched for projects. But if you can type, read, write, things like that, you can get matched for lower projects for sure.
You have to have the hardware support.
A computer, I mean, generally speaking, they aren't mobile, these aren't mobile friendly things. So you would need a laptop or maybe even just a Chromebook, tablet type of a thing that would work for their platform, whatever they're hosting. Yes, it is all web-based. Any other questions?
Jeff, when you implemented when you built your data annotation, or whatever it was, your app, did you implement a keylogger or a mouse?
No. So, no, because it was, for us, very easy to see, number of annotations in an image, and obviously, if I was annotating a highway and said, find all the cars, I'm gonna probably be on a one image for all of them. So we broke it down into basically annotations per minute, and that could all be recorded by the system. So it wasn't a key logger, and it wasn't a mouse jigger or camera feed, but it's like, well, John annotated 7 images, but those images had 10,000 you were just going. So we could suss out from the results who was doing what. I fully get these companies wanting to do some kind of activity check, because if they're going to pay you by the hour, they want to make sure that you're active. There is definitely just personally, I will never work with a company that I can't go to the bathroom without filling in the prompt why I was checking for 5 minutes. I worked at a company that was trying everything. But they're like, well, we're not tracking you. We're just interested to see generally what's happening throughout the day. I'm like, it pops up if you walk away from your computer for more than 30 seconds saying, what did you do? Why were you not active? I'm like, system process closed. And yes, within 2 weeks, all of us, because it was a small company,
Everyone's going to the
everyone was
bathroom.
like, screw this. And so they gave it up because it's like, no, I'm not going to sit here and let you.
But to that point, if your website will make broken. There's some agencies that don't do that, but rather, because you have to produce, you have to make, there's a product, right?
Yeah.
Writing prompts, you're answering questions. Wouldn't they just go on that?
A lot of them started out that way, and then they got hit with fraud, essentially, and people taking advantage of the system. Because they're paying hourly, they want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if it's somebody saying, I'm paying this much money for the task, that would be different from the hourly pay, so. And that's where a lot of the checks of if you're actually working come in. Because when I started in this in 2022, there weren't a lot of those type of checks, but then over time, suddenly they get started implementing them, and it's like, oh, okay, people were screwing this up for the rest of us.
But I can see how you get something with just gaming system, like,
Oh, yeah.
yes or no, like, no, yes, no, yes, right, like, they don't care. Right, so does it just.
And you don't get value out of it, yeah.
What kind of logging you're doing.
And that goes to why multiple people review, because there's the managers will get conflict score against everyone. So they'll say all the answers can go, well, these 5 were very similar. So they're good. This one got basically a 0. So
I mean, it's AI. You figure that the AI would be smart enough to not be fooled.
yeah.
No.
It's definitely, it's highly dependent on the base model, what they're going for.
Well, and we have to remember, AI isn't smart. AI is recognizing patterns. That's literally all it is. It's finding the next logical thing that comes next, and then the next thing after that, and then the next thing after that. It's not actual.
But if you, if you're doing, like the capture check, right? So we got all the traffic lights.
Mhm.
You know,
Well,
knows
and-
what a traffic light is, but if we ask the person what's a traffic light, and it's picking the street, it's got to know a little bit, right?
But some of what I'm doing, data annotation, that is CAPTCHAs. It's feeding things like CAPTCHAs.
We've trained computer vision since 2006, 2007. We've never filled out the what's this fuzzy word or what's a street light. We've been training. Google has been using us for training data
Yeah.
for years.
That's data annotation right there.
All for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how profitable is recognizing a traffic light, a motorcycle, or a bus? Those things are so damn frustrating.
Well, yes, and it's now your base model. If you've got a base model, we'll say computer vision again, that already has 10 million images, and you're going, I'm really interested in white vans. Well, it might already have several 100,000 hits on it. You're like, well, reasonably it's good, but maybe I'm training the model. With computer vision, there's a lot. You can do bounding boxes to say like this is the general area. You can do polygons to say like this is the actual shape. You can do labels to say person, man, car, TV. A whole bunch of different types of vision. And so we would be taking a base model that was just bounding box to say in this corner was a cow, and then RB would be coming in and going, I'm going to draw around all the features of this cow, but maybe you're training a model that will be used for motion detection. They want to know the difference between a cow and a dog. So when they're counting the cows, they're not counting the dogs. And so it might be better fidelity of legs. That's kind of where this goes. No one trains AI from their face. Like, all of these are already giving you answers. You're just telling them whether or not you think it's right or
And how it can be better.
or whatever. So you're already working with something intelligent.
Well, and now there are so many large language models out there to where anybody who has their own usage or their own need or want can gain access to an LLM that they then can take that and put into their own and want to have it trained. So then they bring that to something like Outlier or Aligner or data annotation to gain taskers to train it to their specifications. And that's where the projects come from.
Do you find yourself, what's the pace that you find yourself following? Like slow and accurate, or I would like to do as much as I can?
It always depends upon the project. Some projects require more brain power, I guess. So those I would sooner do at a slower pace. Other projects are kind of brainless, and they're literally A, B, A, B, A, B, which one? So those you can do very fast. Some projects are writing a sentence that applies to something and then having the AI spin out a response to that sentence, and then you do turn-based for that several times. Those go really fast. It's really just a project-based type of a decision then. But then for me, since I do have my disabilities, having it be something that I can do on my own timetable and the flexibility is amazing, because I don't have deadlines per se. I don't have, I have to do this many in this certain amount of time. But then some of the companies also do missions where if you do this many things in this period of time, you get this $200 bonus or something like that. And that's just a number I'm throwing out there. But so then it's a decision, do I really want the pressure of doing that, or do I want the money? So choices that can be made.
So some you do work faster than you can.
Sometimes.
Do you feel like this is something that's going to persist, meaning the amount of work available? Or do you think like, oh, in 5 years, we've already trained on everything?
I think it's going to keep going because there's always somewhere it can go. Yeah, as it evolves, it'll start to look different. It'll change, it'll grow, it'll become its own thing. But it's still going to require humans. I don't see in my lifetime a place where there isn't a role for humans in this.
I mean, there's only so much in the world.
AGI is never going to happen.
But I mean, unless you're
unless you start reducing or redefining what people assume AGI is, start giving limitations on what AGI actually stands for. 1,000 ways to explain an image.
Yep.
You're interested in the car today, someone else might be interested in the street. But is it painted right? It's the same image. First person didn't care at all and didn't annotate that. So you now have a person coming in to do the next.
The same stories that were told by Hamlet have been retold in umpteen different ways. By that logic, it never ends. You just get a different version. It just grows. It changes a little, but yet it doesn't change. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
And you also get people that don't believe the answer and will pay money to do it again.
Yep.
To get the same answer.
And to try to see if they can get a different answer.
Government overspends, $10,000 screwdriver. Gotta make sure it works. Buy $5 million at once.
Sometimes Google does it. Love their search engine stuff, like, because they're using Gemini, and the Gemini doesn't necessarily always get it right.
Nope.
I 95+% of the time I just read the Gemini answer and I'm like, that's what it's looking at.
And they have the data of that you looking at Gemini, and if you scrolled past the Gemini response and clicked on the link, they're going to factor that in for the next query.
What
Yep.
I'm saying is, I'm surprised they don't, there's been very few occasions where they're saying, how accurate was this? Usually it's like on Google Maps, they're like, did we give you the driving directions correct?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, at least under the Gemini, when you expand it, there is a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah. Where you can give feedback.
I know Claude, Cursor, Claude Code, ChatGPT, definitely 4 and 5. I can respond back if the answer was satisfactory. I don't think I've ever just said, no, this was incorrect. I've always just reprompted and said, no, you're incorrect. Let's try this again. That's also why EGI is you may get an LLM or just a model that is very smart at one thing. AGI is supposed to be one model that rules them all. It's like, where are you going to run that? We're already looking at data centers consuming teraflops of processing power for AI.
Space, there we go.
Yeah, I watched that report too. That's another stupid.
They're trying to host like data centers.
Yeah, they want to put data centers in space because it's cold in space.
Yep.
You don't have to deal with heat. That's not,
So
and it's
you
not
have latency.
100% true. The latency is actually okay. You get them.
Depends how far out it is.
You put them in the same altitude as Starlink. You're talking 100 millisecond.
Low Earth orbit.
End-to-end delay. The big problem is I got my bachelor's degree in hardware. Systems admin. Oliver had to unplug a computer, plug it back in because his screen don't work. Now you got to train astronauts to go on plug back in. Or do what Elon does and just deorbit these $3 million satellites. And we'll just send more up there.
Or robotics. And a lot of room to run.
Oh yeah, robotics. I watched NVIDIA. NVIDIA did their keynote yesterday. Obviously, NVIDIA has big stakes in AI. Their cards. They just launched their successor to Blackwell. Blackwell is very expensive $10,000 GPU that you put in your server. They just launched the successor that's 9 times more powerful. They launched it 6 months earlier because remember to have full self-driving, that's completely off the grid, right? You don't want your car to know about street conditions in New York if you're driving the car, right? So there's only so much storage and processing power your car is gonna ever have. That's like no one has been addressing that concern about like that's we have cell phones. You can go get it in your car. That's easy. It's just the amount of data, the sheer amount of data that goes into running these cars. I run Olama on my MacBook, and 600 gigs model. It takes days to process. No one person can really run these models independently. And as fast as we're training them, we're just OpenAI is going to keep spitting out one after another. Here's the next one. Because they're all fighting for now peanuts and improvements. We got this 14,000 score on Stitch Bench. And look, Opus only got 13s. We're better. Sorry, I'm meandering. Anyway, I'm going to cut the recording,
Okay.
but we're all going to keep hanging out. I don't have to relinquish the space until 8 o'clock. I'd rather go home sooner, but eeny, meeny, miny. Zoom? Zoom? Hey!